This is it, guys, the second generation Porsche Macan. It sure looks a lot sportier, a lot more aggressive, but there is a big twist. It's now a full electric SUV. But if you're not convinced by EVs yet, they'll still sell you a regular ICE Macan, but it's the first generation model. Anyway, let's take a closer look at this brand new baby. Now let's get into the details. This may be a full electric SUV, but first and foremost, it is a Porsche first. It has to look really good, it has to be unique as a Porsche, and it needs to drive, well, practically the best in the class. And Porsche has convinced us they've absolutely nailed the driving dynamics of this new one. So this may be electric, but it drives much better than the old one, as well as being more comfortable. Overall, it's just a massive improvement across all corners. Now let's talk about performance. There's going to be two different variants. To start with, the Macan 4 that you see over here, as well as a sportier looking Macan Turbo. Now, starting with the Macan 4, technically the base model, but it has 650 Newton meters of torque. That's already more than the previous generation top of the line GTS version. So yeah, that is just a massive improvement in terms of performance as well. And then when we get to the Porsche Macan Turbo, it gets absolutely insane. It has over 1000 Newton meters of torque, more than double the flagship Macan GTS from before. So yeah, it's just absolutely bonkers level of performance here. In terms of performance numbers, the Macan 4 gets from 0 to 100 in just over 5 seconds, while the Macan Turbo does it in just over 3 seconds. Again, insane performance for an SUV like this. Now, they've done this without having the complicated 2-speed transmission like in the Taycan, so they've learned a lot from its first electric model. This is improved across the board by all the learnings from the Taycan. In terms of range, the new Macan is pretty impressive as well. The Macan 4 does over 600 kilometers on a single charge, while the much quicker Macan Turbo isn't too far behind at nearly 600 kilometers. So with this, you don't even have to choose between range and performance. With the Turbo, you can have both. All that range comes from a pretty large battery, 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, but however, it is using an NMC pack instead of LFP. Talking to the engineers, this is because using an NMC pack gives a much higher energy density, so they can pack more energy within a smaller, lighter battery pack as well. This is also the reason why, despite being bigger and full electric with a big heavy battery pack, the weight for the Macan hasn't gone up all that dramatically. The top of the line Macan Turbo, being full EV, is only about 2.3, 2.4 tons, not that much higher compared to the regular ICE Macan. As for charging the battery back up, this runs an 800 volt electrical architecture similar to the Taycan. So this has a maximum DC charging rate of up to 270 kilowatts, pretty fast. It can go from 10 to 80% SOC in just 21 minutes. Even more impressive, you can just charge it for 5 minutes and you get up to 100 kilometers of range. That is amazing. However, in terms of AC charging, this still has the usual 11 kilowatt onboard AC charger instead of a full 22. That's a little bit disappointing for a brand new EV like this. But in typical Porsche EV fashion, you get two separate charging ports on either sides of the car. On the driver's side, you get a proper DC port, whereas on the other side, there is an AC port. Now let's talk about styling. This looks sharper, lower, and definitely recognizable as a Porsche, but more specifically a Macan. But even though this is now a full electric car right now, Porsche hasn't tried too hard to make it look like a typical EV. I mean, it helps that Porsche traditionally doesn't have a front grille anyway. There is just a big intake, so they don't have to change too much when it comes to designing an EV. However, they have made significant changes to the overall profile of the Macan because there is now no longer a big engine under the hood. They have managed to lower down the front nose by quite a fair bit, giving this car a much swoopier overall roofline. One major change for the Macan and for the entire Porsche brand is this big light at the top over here isn't actually the headlight, that is just the DRL, even though it still uses the typical 4-point layout as before. The actual headlights have been moved down here, separated from the top section over here. This is similar to what a lot of other car brands are doing, but here I think it fits. From the side, you can clearly see the second generation Macan has kept the signature side blades from before, but new to this model is the frameless windows now. Now you open up all the doors, it looks lighter, it looks far sportier than before. But overall, the more swooping roofline on the top is a lot more apparent. This now looks like a 4-door tall 911. This looks much more so like a coupe than even the Cayenne coupe. A big focus for the second generation Macan is in terms of aerodynamics. The engineers have managed to bring down the coefficient of drag from 0.35 in the old car all the way down to 0.25. That is a massive difference, and Porsche says that the difference in aero alone has contributed to an extra 85 kilometers of range. But while the front may be familiar to current Macan owners, the rear end will be familiar to Porsche 911 owners. This full width LED taillights with a 3D effect as well. This is almost purely taken wholesale from the sports car. It makes the Macan look properly sporty at the back. The back end over here can pop up as well as part of its adaptive aerodynamic system. This looks excellent. Moving on inside, the Macan gets an all-new interior as well. This overall to me looks like a combination between the latest Cayenne facelift as well as the Taycan interior. So basically you get the best of both worlds. Now on first impressions, the interior quality looks absolutely stunning. At the top, it's very nicely covered in leather. Down here, it's all nice plastics, although it does feel a little bit hard here and there, but you do get a lot more storage spaces down here, especially compared to the rather tight and snug first generation Macan. The center screen over here runs a latest version of Android Automotive, which is a big step up for Porsche. And it now has a much deeper integration of both Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. For instance, you can now have your maps displayed within the center display right in front of the driver. I think that is fantastic. This is one of the first production cars to have this new integration. But my favorite part of this interior is still down here. You've got plenty of physical controls for your air conditioning, both temperature and fan, and a big volume knob as well. That is absolutely brilliant. Another important fact is that despite this being fully electric with a skateboard platform, meaning the entire big thick battery is sitting underneath you right now, Porsche has managed to mount the seats a little bit lower than before. That for sure took a lot of work, so now you feel like you're more in the car rather than sitting on top of it. Also new for the second generation Macan is an option for a third screen in front of the passenger. This new screen has a lot of new functions. You can actually watch YouTube on this or even scroll through your own TikTok profile. But for safety reasons, that can only be seen by the front passenger. There is a special film that will block the driver from actually seeing what is on display. I think that is a pretty cool technology too. In the back over here, the first generation Macan has always been a little bit too tight, a little bit too small. The second generation model improves on it across all dimensions. You get slightly more legroom, slightly more headroom. For your reference, I am 168 centimeters tall, but even if you're much taller, you should be able to fit in the back here. Perhaps not too comfortably, but you will fit. Comfort, however, is just okay because the floor is still a little bit too high and the backrest cannot be adjusted. But all in all, this is already a big improvement over the first generation Macan. As for the all-important pricing, we don't know the exact prices just yet. This has just been unveiled globally. It will take some time before it reaches Malaysia. But the current first generation Macan goes from 500,000 all the way up to 900,000 ringgit. This new version being EV is going to be tax-free, so it should be significantly cheaper. That's pretty exciting. So there you go guys, the second generation Porsche Macan, now a fully electric SUV. What do you think of this brand new model? What do you think of the looks, the tech, the interior? Do let me know in the comment section below. For now, thank you for watching everyone and stay safe.